Approval of the minutes of the November 26, 2019 meeting.
It's been moved and supported. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion carries. Next item.
Item D, unfinished business, there is none. Item E1, communication from Eric Sabri, forwarding a report on stadium tax collection efforts for fiscal year 17-18 as compared to fiscal year 18-19.
Everybody have a chance to look at it. Any discussion? Anyone have any questions? Commissioner Martha Scott moves, supported by Commissioner Baidoon. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion carries. Next item.
Item E2, requesting commissioner approval of an intergovernmental agreement with the State of Michigan Department of Technology, Management, and Budget for data sharing exchange.
Thank you. Any discussion?
No, I'll move approval.
Support.
It's been moved and supported. Commissioner Anderson?
Since folks are probably even viewing this, I'm trying to figure out what it is. Would you explain again what this is, the share agreement,
I think Scott
briefly?
is here. He's
Or-
actually coming in just for this.
Just the
So I
right time.
think it's his turn, it's his turn to talk
Thank you.
because he's on vacation right now, so.
It's on.
Good morning.
Good morning, Scott Vandenbergel, Director of Assessment and Equalization in Wayne County. What this agreement proposes to do is Wayne County maintains parcel maps for all the parcels in the county that it has responsibility for the assessment over. There's about 850-ish thousand parcels in the county, that it has parcel boundaries, that it has delineated on digital parcel maps. Formerly, they were done by pen and ink on drafting paper. Modern technology that they're done digitally. It's been done for quite some time now. What this proposal proposes to do in a non-monetary sense is just an exchange, even exchange, trading our information locally within the county for the parcel mapping to the state of Michigan. What they're trying to do is assemble a statewide parcel layer. So they're trying to branch out and cover the entire state if they can do it, for having a parcel mapping blanket over the entire state. And then what we would receive in return, with this body's approval, would be their statewide imagery, which the state is procuring a flyover from, with sort of like Google Earth, with aerial photography. So what we'd be able to do is take high-res imagery and then take our parcel boundary mapping and then overlay that on top of the aerial imagery. So we'd be able to see essentially something like Google Earth with very high definition resolution photography, and then having our parcel boundaries resting on top of that. So for instance, we could see, if we saw the Guardian building, we would see high-res imagery with completely up-to-date mapping technology overlaid on top of that. So it's not a monetary exchange. We get something that they want. We get something that we want. They get something that they want, and both parties. So we went ahead.
Yeah, good. I know it was back in the 90s, I think, when a lot of this, I think our city got on board with GIS system and having everything put on there, but it's good to see that it's happening finally. And hopefully it will make it statewide, and it will all be able to, and would that be accessible to anyone?
It will, yes. And
Okay.
there is existing technology that is in place. There's something on the county's webpage right now. There's a Wayne County parcel viewer where there's functionality that allows for that at the current time. We're just really scratching the surface of that. And what I would ask for this board to consider in the future is we really sort of dive more deeply into this in collaboration with DOIT, is to really fully expand and unlock all the potential that is within this technology for GIS. There's really no end to the ability to leverage the technology into service delivery and for deployment of public services, for capital asset allocation, for determining when roads are to be replaced or resurfaced, where streetlights are, where where park locations are for proximity to local units of government and for availability for constituents, where commission districts are, voting precincts. I mean, it's just endless on the technology. I understand just a fraction of it. We actually happen to have extraordinarily well-qualified gentleman here, Paul McCord from DOIT, who knows exponentially more than I do, because he is the expert on it. But I know from the standpoint of the property assessment area, obviously, but that really just scratches the surface of it. Our area is important because it's the base layer, really the parcel boundaries and the things that we assess and the things that we describe and the things that we place on the assessment roll and tax. That's really the primary focus of everything else that rests on top of that. So the street lights and the parks and the roads and the precincts and everything like that sort of sit in cyberspace and top layer upon the actual parcels. But if we don't have the parcel boundaries clearly and properly identified, then everything that comes after it is sort of, garbage in, garbage out.
Yeah, I just think it's a great idea. I mean, when I was on the city council back in the 90s, when we did this, we were able to designate where all the utility lines were, the underground utilities as well as above ground, the water hydrants for fire hydrants for the fire department, so they didn't have to look for one. They knew right where it was at when they got on the scene.
Oh, it's fantastic.
and-
It's so impressive, and I mean, I would be hopeful that this board would entertain at some point a presentation to really see some of the functionality that really is there, and maybe to identify, what we would like to see for service delivery and how this technology can really be leveraged according to the policymaking board and where the direction the county would like to see it taken in, because there's just really no end to what could be done for benefiting the constituency, because we're really just scratching the surface of it, and we have this technology, and we've had it. We not only have it, but we have had it for a long time, and some of it's just been sitting there sort of dormant, and some of it's being utilized, but I mean, it's really just something that can be really expanded upon, and I think that it's really something that can benefit the citizens of the county, as we really look for efficient service delivery within limits constraints that we have.
Yeah, all right, thank you.
I know the Register of Deeds did remonumentation a few years back. I'm not sure if they're finished. Are they finished?
I was involved in the RFP for that maybe a year or so ago. I know that's kind of an ongoing project, where they periodically, they get annual grants, I believe, from the state. I'm not a complete expert on it, I know a little bit about it. They get annual grants from the state, and they do a portion of the county annually over the course of time, so that they're always going through the corners of the survey monuments.
Right.
I believe that they awarded the contract to Giffords Webster most recently, if I'm not mistaken, and I think that they did do that last summer for the most recent rendition of it. But I think that that's an annual grant process that requires the annual application of an award and a grant for that. And I think that we get, as the largest county in the state population-wise and parcel count-wise, I think we get the largest grant in the state. But past that, I would really be speaking out of turn for an area that's not really within my own purview.
I'll have to find out now that I'm curious about it, how long it's going to take to get the entire county done. I think our staff might have an idea. Nope. Okay.
From what I understand,
Joe,
the most
do you
recent
have?
grant was approved at full board last week. Kind of an ongoing annual process. Yeah, it's an annual process. So the grant is applied, I mean, it's available, it's applied for, it's awarded, and then once the award is done, then the award has to actually be given to open bidding process and a vendor and so on. So that process has begun anew for this current.
I just didn't remember the timeline on it. I remember the contract, I just didn't remember the timeline on how long it would take to. But if it's ongoing, Joe, do you know? Our staff? No? Okay.
I think
We'll find out
I
from
think
the
there's
Register of Deeds.
There's an annual pool of money that is made available by the state, and that is divvied up to the counties that apply, but according to the counties, according to certain parameter for parcel count and population and criteria that they use, and then depending on what's available, then that's allocated accordingly. And then after that, then that is, the parties are responsible to make an award to a vendor that meets certain criteria for professional surveying certifications and so on.
Madam Chair, I was
Yes,
just going.
Commissioner Anderson?
Thank you. I was just going to ask Scott, I didn't reply, but I would be most interested to see when you have something that you would be willing to share with us. And I would love to see what we're able to use that for, what the county is, the benefit's going to be to the county.
Okay, absolutely. I'll correspond with Director Perez and Dr. McCord, and we'll see what we can put together. Maybe there would be an appropriate time and place for more of a formal presentation where we can have a kind of a dedicated block of time, if that's your pleasure.
I would be very interested in having you come and share that information with us. Let me know and we'll put you on the agenda.
Great.
Thank
I'm sure
you.
the parties would love that. Thank you for that.
Thank you.
opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions? It's been moved and supported. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion carries. Next item.
Item E3, requesting commissioner approval of budget adjustment number 2019-35279, decertifying revenue in the 2018 A Jail Center Construction Fund.
Thank you. Could we hear from you on this, please?
Good morning, Kevin Haney, Deputy Chief Financial Officer.
It's nice to see you today.
It's nice seeing you. This budget adjustment, I'm here really for 3 and 5, I think. Yeah, 3 and 5, this is why I'm really
We'll take
here.
it together, 3 and 5.
Budget adjustment number 3 is a decertification of $114 million in the jail construction fund. The purpose of this decertification is really just I gave you folks my word that we would decertify whatever we didn't spend in the jail fund for 2019, because when we did the budget originally, we didn't know how much we were going to do, and so we just threw a potload of money out there, and you folks graciously approved it. We're doing something similar in 2020, and it'll be decertified whatever we don't spend there next year. So all this is doing is a year-end cleanup, so when Marcy does her budget-sensitive report, she's not going to yell at poor Kelly here for having a huge variance in the construction fund.
Okay. Go ahead,
Yeah,
Mr. Abbo.
Just a quick comment through the chair.
Could you
What-
identify yourself?
Yeah,
for the
Mark
record?
Abbo, the Chief Fiscal Advisor. What you'll notice throughout the agenda is that there's some cleanup items that really pertain to putting things where they belong in regards to the year-end CAFR. So reallocating expenses, this moving money from the, to the general fund from the jail fund. Again, it's to really button up so that the presentation in the CAFR is appropriate for the county. And you'll see that throughout the agenda. There's a couple of items that deal with, the prior fiscal year, 2018, 2019.
I'll move approval.
Thank you. 3 and 5?
No, well, I want to
Just
hear
3,
about 5.
okay.
yeah. Let me
No,
just
go
do
ahead and
3.
approve that one.
Okay, on item 3, do I have a support? Commissioner Scott, more discussion on item 3? Go ahead, Commissioner Baker McCormick.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So with the decertifying of these funds, basically you just explained that
Right.
the funds weren't used.
Correct,
right?
and they'll be used in 20, and 21, and 22.
Okay,
So-
so they will be.
Oh, yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
But to reconcile the,
Yeah, if you recall, in fact, I think you were here, you were a newbie, if you will, of one of the
Okay.
commissioners, is that when we put the budget together for the 2018-19 budget, because we had no history on it as well, we just made an assumption of what we thought the spend rate would be, and I think we put $128 million out there. And as a result of the way they're spending, we're decertifying 114. Now, the 114 is actually, there's some double counts in there, so it's not exactly 114. It's probably closer to 60 or 70 million dollars of what we're actually decertifying. But the way the the ordinance is, it looks like we're decertifying that much. I know that's confusing. I'm back.
Okay. So,
Could you repeat that? No.
so the funds will go back,
Right.
and when does that happen?
So this body, as well as the full board, approved the 2020 budget, and within the 2020 budget, there is a similar amount in Fund 467 for the construction fund, for the construction of the new jail. This is really, as Mark says, this is really just cleanup, reducing the budget, so there isn't a big variance in the CAFR for the construction fund, for the jail construction fund.
Okay, and so where we are in the building process, currently, we don't need the funds to move forward.
We spent what we could in 2018-19. In 2020, we have a budget that's already out there. If the Rock Ventures spend more money than, or if they're projected to spend more money than what we'll do, management and budget, the administration will come back to this body and say, and ask for more money. It's all coming from fund balance. It's all been it's sitting in fund balance right now.
Waiting, kinda
So it's
Okay.
just waiting to be used for the jail
Because we
project.
know that eventually
Yes.
we will need it. Okay,
Correct.
great, thank you.
Thank you. Any more questions? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion carries. Next item.
Item E4, requesting commission approval of budget adjustment 2020-35026, decertifying revenue and the general fund.
Any questions on this one?
Four, right?
Yeah.
Item number 4. It's reconciling.
Move approval.
It's been moved and supported. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion carries. Then number 5, discussion. Go ahead.
So this budget adjustment is, the plan, the plan for this budget adjustment is to transfer monies in the current year, 2018-19 current year, that is, right now, we're projecting as surplus, and moving it to the construction fund for the possible, or probable, I should say, what do you want to call it, the purchase back, if you will, or basically what we're going to do is there's the parking concession is currently owned by Rock. They have a $30 million concession deal on it. And if we purchase it back, we'll take that responsibility from Rock for the parking concession, and it'll become a county obligation, and it'll be a county opportunity.
So you're trying to do it earlier so we
Correct.
can save $2 to $4 million.
$4 million of savings we're projecting. And this $28 million is, just so you're aware, we're still working out the numbers for the 2018-19 CAFR. So this is an up to amount. What we're going to do is we're going to move whatever we can, but we're not going to let the general fund go into deficit. So what'll happen is, and James Heath is here, and he'll probably talk about the contract with Rock, the change in the definitive agreement, is that correct? Change of the definitive agreement, basically taking that obligation away from Rock and giving it to us. That way we can control our own destiny when it comes to the parking. That agreement is not before the commission yet. It's still being worked out, and James will talk about that in a second. So what this is doing is taking the money from the general fund and giving it to the construction fund. At some point in time in the future, we will have to come back in in the 2020 budget to certify whatever dollars we need to purchase the, I guess, for lack of a better word, is purchase the concession agreement back from Rock.
Whatever that contract amount will be that you're
Correct.
negotiating
Yes.
between now and then we will have to reallocate that.
Yes, so this
Okay.
is basically the first step of the two-step process. has taken the money back and putting it in the construction fund where it'll sit in fund balance. And then in 2020, the commission will have a second bite at the apple and say, as they go through the contract with James and his group, and as well as the Rock folks. And then Kelly will do another budget adjustment certifying whatever we need to do, and we'll have a spending plan to make sure that we have sufficient funds in order to purchase back the parking concession.
Could you give us the language, identify yourself for the record, and give us the language that we currently have that you will be renegotiating for the parking?
Sure. James Heath Corporation Counsel. Everything that Kevin said is correct. And I thought I heard him say that he would be here next year as well.
He did.
So actually, there would be three steps. The budget adjustment that you would approve here today, which is under consideration, the reallocation that Kevin mentioned, and then if there is a deal reached, there would be an amendment to the definitive agreement that the commission would also have to approve. So I want to be very clear that you, by approving this budget adjustment here today, you are not approving any change to the definitive agreement or the reallocation that would occur next year. So this is just for the approval of the budget adjustment. He laid out the general framework accurately. The current agreement calls for for ROC to operate the parking, off-site parking at the CJC. And after 15 years, they have the ability to terminate that agreement, and we would have to pay roughly $30 million minus the net present value of the funds that have been taken in by the operator. So we anticipate that would be in the neighborhood of $30 million. One of the things that we are considering and will be putting forth in the next calendar year for your consideration is for us to terminate that agreement early. And so right after the substantial completion of the jail, the county or its designated operator, whoever we would determine that to be, would begin operating those parking lots immediately. And that would allow us increased flexibility in terms of who would be the operator. It would, as to the CJC, it would relinquish us of any further ties with ROC in terms of dealing with them further, and probably most importantly to the commission, assuming the agreement that we're able to work out, it would save several $1 million for the county. And so, as I said, that would require a change to our definitive agreement. We are still in the process of negotiating with ROC, and so I do not have an agreement to put before you today, as I promised Commission Counsel. We will have that agreement before the end of the calendar year for her and her staff to review, but it obviously would not be able to be taken up by this body until 2020.
The end of calendar year is September.
No, it's 2 weeks away.
Oh, in calendar year.
Calendar
Okay.
year, yes.
I'm thinking budget year.
Right.
Calendar year.
I may have said calendar 20. I meant to say calendar 19. We will have the agreement that we would like for you to consider, but there's just not time for you to take it up until you return after the new year.
Can you at least say that the communication is positive
Yes.
for
I
the
mean,
end result to be as
there's no question about that, and that's
Okay.
and that is why the Office of the Chief Financial Officer is here with this budget adjustment. So we clearly anticipate that we'll have a net positive to the county, and that is why we are here today requesting this budget adjustment, which will frankly give us the opportunity to enter into an agreement next year.
Well, that way we can control how much we charge for parking and all of that as well, so I like that idea. Alrighty, we have other members on the list, Commissioner Anderson, Maraki, Baydoun, and Commissioner McCormick,
Thank you.
Baker McCormick.
Mr. Heath, I did want to ask about the lot construction itself. This does not affect that whatsoever. If we buy it, that'll take place. Actually, this transfer would take place after that construction is done.
You are 100% correct.
Right, okay.
That is correct. So any agreement that we would enter into would not affect, how those lots are going to be constructed, what's going to go into as those lots. And we are frankly, right now, as you know from your committee's work, we are in the process now of doing some planning with respect to the lots right now. And so this is not a function of what the lots are going to look like, just our ability to be able to operate them from day one after substantial completion.
And I believe we're still looking at, right now, a shortage of the number of spaces that we're going to need due to some changes. I mean, the cup, for one, the secured parking, I think it affected that by, I can't remember how many spaces, but, so those are some things that you're saying are under discussion right now and negotiation?
So you are correct. We did lose some spots in the secured area after we moved the central utility plant on site from across the street. And we are working with our end users right now to make sure that we have all of the parking that is required, both for our employees as well as for the visitors to the CJC. I would hesitate to say in terms of a shortage in describing that. I think we're not there, but we are monitoring our numbers very, very closely. And whatever we decide, whether the county continues with its concessionaires agreement with ROC or whether it alters that agreement and decides to operate the lot either on its own or with a different third party, we will have sufficient parking for all of our end users and for the general public.
So we know what the new number is, or has it changed at all from the original plans?
We are working, the number in terms of the lot, the number of parking spaces as amended by the agreement which you approved over the summer, we know what that number is. The number that is still being discussed is exactly how many spaces we need for our end users and the like, and we are in constant communication with them on that point.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Commissioner Mbaraki?
Thank you. I'm just curious why we're doing this like we are with the budget. I mean, we've approved other things before, other contracts, and then moved the money over. So why is it advantageous
So
to do this
the
beforehand?
urgency, if you will, is that we're still allowed to use, we're still doing 2018-19 dollars. If we didn't move these dollars, they would follow fund balance, which would make it very much more difficult for me to spend, or for her to spend, if you will. So the idea is that it gives us more flexibility by moving the money to the construction fund, because the construction fund's not part of the general. And I want to emphasize this. I may have said it already once, but what we're asking for is authorization up to $28 million. We will not use more than 28 million, but we may move less than 28 million depending on the outcome of the audit. So I want this body to understand that 28's on the outside, but because we may not use that much. And if we don't use that much, then Kelly and I will have to come up with Plan B to see where we need to get the additional funds in 2020 to pay for the concession. So
Okay, so why would it be more difficult if it went into, and I'm not arguing
Right.
what you want to
So-
do, I just don't know, why would it be more difficult if it was in the fund balance to at that point
So
say?
the only way you can get money out of fund balance in any particular fund is deficit spend. So what'll happen is, from a budgetary standpoint, we have a balanced budget, but we also use an account called use of fund balance, which can be a positive or negative number. In this particular case, where you're gonna be using it as a negative number, if you will, we're gonna move the money into the construction fund and then put it away sock it away in fund balance until it's needed. If we left it in the general fund, could we spend it? Yes, but then what would happen is, the general fund would fall into deficit, would be required to burn, the only way you can burn fund balance is through deficit spending, and the CEO has told me more than once that's not an option for the county right now.
Okay, so let's say we didn't approve this contract down the road, would that money go back into the general fund then?
So what would happen is.
Or we'd make a decision to do
We'd make a
something?
decision then. My personal opinion is that we are flexible enough, if you leave it in the construction fund, if there is God forbid, we're not saying there is, if there is a need for it in the construction for something that, that wasn't planned for, that money would be available. We're not anticipating that at the end of the project, and this goes for pretty much all of the monies that are not grant related, or not bond related, at the end of the project, all the monies go back to the general fund anyways, so.
Okay, thank you.
Another explanation, Mr. Abo?
To summarize a little bit of what Mr. Haney was talking about, optics is real important when it comes to the CAFR. You do not want to show a large surplus one year and then a deficit the next year. So balancing that in a way that, you know, how it appears that the county manages its financial affairs is really important to those people that may ultimately be our creditors. So that kind of stuff is really important. And so I believe doing something like this, if we know we're going to do it, one is it saves money, one is it gives us opportunity to deal with the parking unencumbered by an arrangement with ROC. So to me, it seems like if we're going to do that, it's prudent to do it in the way that's being outlined here.
Okay, thank you.
You wanted to make a point, Commissioner Henderson?
To that point, the previous point about the cost and why 28 instead of the 30? What's the discrepancy in those numbers? Is it because of some type of a discounted?
Yeah, it's a time value of money. So the $30 million is at a point in time, and the point in time is somewhere in 2022 when the project will be completed or near completion. So if we upfront the money, then there would be a discounted factor that ROC would agree to.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Commissioner Baidoon?
Just to that point, so just for clarification, again, it's really accounting, and moving the monies around. Not necessarily that we're, diminishing, any, or using any funds. It's
Correct.
just-
We're
It's just for accounting
right.
purposes.
We're not spending any money. All this budget adjustment is doing is reallocating it to another fund with the possibility of spending it into the future.
Okay.
It also indicates to ROC probably that the commission is willing to accept negotiations on a much lesser amount than maybe anticipated at the end of the process.
I think there's truth to that, and so that one of the reasons when you finally see the agreement, you will see the result of the negotiations that we are engaging in with ROC right now, and you will know the exact amount of savings that we anticipate taking this course of action will provide to the county.
We're really looking forward to that. Commissioner Baidoon.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I believe reallocating the money today to save $2 million in the near future is a very smart financial decision. And to your point, yeah, controlling our own destiny is the way to go. So I fully support this. And Commissioner Anderson addressed my question, the discrepancy between the 28 million and the 30 million. I will make a motion to approve this.
Okay. Commissioner Baker McCormick, you're still on the list.
I think my question was answered
Okay.
but the parking lot, just to clarify, we will not own it, we will just operate it?
Own and operate.
So own and operate, okay. Okay.
That's good news. Alrighty, we have a motion and support. Any more discussion on this? Alrighty, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioners.
Good luck. Bring us back more money.
Welcome back, Kevin.
Yeah, try
I think I'll stick
25.
around that way. But I'm not going to say anything.
Thank you. Next item.
Item E6, requesting commission approval of budget adjustment 2020-35034, certifying and reallocating expenditures in the general fund.
Alrighty. Any questions on item 6? Commissioner Scott moves, supported by
Support.
Commissioner Baydun. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion carries. Next item.
Item E7, requesting commission approval of budget adjustment 2020-35036, certifying revenue and reallocating expenditures in the county health fund.
Thank you.
Move approval.
Now, we do have someone here on this if you have any questions. I hear none. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion carries. Next item.
Item E8, requesting commission approval of budget adjustment 2020-35039, certifying revenue in the general fund.
This is in the prosecuting attorney's office. It's been moved and supported. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion carries. Next item.
Item E9, requesting commission approval of budget adjustment 2019-35276, reallocating expenditures in the general fund.
Okay, this is in the sheriff's. Any questions?
Move approval.
Been moved and supported. We do have someone from the sheriff's office if you had any questions, but all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion carries. Next item.
Item E10, requesting commission approval of budget adjustment 2020-35024, reallocating expenditures in the general fund.
Thank you. Item 10, anyone has any questions? It's been moved and supported. All in favor, say aye. Anyone opposed? Motion carries. Next item.
Item E11, requesting commission approval of budget adjustment 2020-35030, reallocating expenditures in the general fund.
Support.
Been moved and supported. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Motion carries. Next item.
Item E12, requesting commission approval of budget adjustment 2020-35041, reallocating expenditures in the general fund.
This is for the Register of Deeds.
Support.
Been moved and supported. Discussion. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone
Aye.
opposed? Motion carries. Next item.
Item F, such other matters as may properly be submitted before the committee.
Do we have anything from your end? No. How about you?
Callie Rao, Budget Director. No, not at this time.
Okay. Next item.
Item G, public comments.
Anyone from the public wishing to comment? Anyone from the public wishing to comment? I see none. Before we adjourn, I just want to wish everyone Merry Christmas. This is the end of the year for us, for last Ways and Means meeting.
Yes.
It's been a great year, and I have to say that I could not find another group of people as dedicated as you, and I really enjoy working with each and every one of you. So, Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays. I hear a motion to adjourn.
Support.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? We are adjourned.
See you next year.
See you next, yeah, almost. Next week at
I
full
meant
board.
next year for this committee.
This committee, yes. I anticipate we'll